Amanda Quinsna Ishentali Nooksack Ima Ishentali Swordobs Ka Swinamish Tan Mansna James Smith Sr. Santansna Agrippina Romero Tansilasna John Romero Ka James Smith Sr. Sansilasna Alfreda Bailey Ka Betty Jimmy Tachomilksna John Smith Ka Al Sampson Ka Syndic Jimmy Chomilksna Jean Henry Ka Elizabeth Scott Ka Susan Malloway. Amanda is my name. I'm from Nooksack. I'm also from Swinomish and Skokomish, and my dad's name is James Smith Sr. My mom's name is Agrippina Romero, or otherwise known as Abby Smith. My grandma's name is Alfreda Sampson and Betty Jimmy. My grandpa's name's John Romero and James Smith Sr. My great-grandfather's names were John Smith, Al Sampson, and Syndic Jimmy. My grandmother's names were Jean Henry, Elizabeth Scott, and Susan Malloway. I'm enrolled in the Nooksack tribe, and the name is derived from Nooksack. This area is by Anderson Creek, and it means always bracken fern root. It was once a part of our diet. We used to grind it up and make a flatbread out of it. And we also, I think we dried the root to eat, fern roots. So that's where our name come from, but it was easier to pronounce the word Nooksack, so that's how our name came to be. Nooksack is comprised of many villages, which makes the people today. There were villages in Deming, in Everson, in Linden, and Sumas. Oh, and there was a village by Lake Whatcom. The one in Everson I know was called Quanich, and that one is right by the bridge on the way to the grocery store. That's there. And then there was another village called Squahalich, and Squahalich is a village next to the river, on the Nooksack River in Linden. We visited there on the canoe journey. I don't know what year it was. It might have been 2005 or something. And we went there, but presently farmers live on that village now. It's not a village anymore, but it was once a Nooksack village. We went to visit that place, or we launched our canoe there, which is kind of funny now because our river is really shallow, so I don't even know if we can launch there anymore. But once upon a time we used to use river canoes, shovel nose canoes, and that was the area in Linden that we would switch from our shovel nose canoes to ocean going canoes. And then we would travel out on the Nooksack River all the way down to Ferndale to Bellingham Bay, past Lummi, to go to our next destination. But that's the area on the river that we used to switch our canoes from river canoe to ocean going canoe. There was also another village in Linden called Mokwam, and that translates to cranberry marsh. And then there's another village in Linden called Chalos. And I can't remember what that one was translated to. Our elders left these place names for us, but the places are literal meanings. Our place names, or what we called places, had literal meanings. Like Mount Baker was called Quok Smani, and Quok means white, and Smani means mountain. And so that described Mount Baker. Mount Baker, because it's a white snow-capped mountain. Another place name I know of is called Tumukden, and it's a village site that I actually visited, and Tumukden translates to Earth Device. The reason it's called that is because it was an old pit house village. Anyway, this village, Tumukden, had a lot of artifacts on it, and we visited it, and it's in Sumas. The people that lived there were white people, but they had so many artifacts on the shelves in their house that they stopped picking them up in their yard or around where they live, which is like farm. Everywhere around here is farm. But they have so much artifacts there that they stopped picking them up, and Western did a study on these artifacts and carbon dated them, and they're really old. I can't remember how old. But this area, they did a research thing on the soil, and the soil had rich pH levels, the richest in Whatcom County. And I think it was because of the salmon run that went into that creek right next to the village. I think that's what enriched the soils. You know how they say rivers, they meander through the valley? Well, those rivers enriched the soil or the valley, but the fish, that's what the fish did. Another place name I wanted to talk about was Whatcom, because Whatcom is a current name that we use today, but it's Whatcom. But before it was Whatcom, which describes the Whatcom Falls in Bellingham. And what it was describing was the sound of water, waterfalls. Whatcom. That's what the place name means, water splashing, the sound of water splashing. Nooksack is made up of villages from Bellingham Bay, or from Mount Baker, the foothills of Mount Baker to Bellingham Bay. And the way we navigated from there was through rivers. That's how we navigated and found our way. There was a river, a creek. It was 10 Mile Creek, and this place name was called Nikiai. And Nikiai went from 10 Mile Creek all the way down by Quanich, and from Quanich Village, which is Everson, you can see Mount Baker. This one, you follow Nikiai, the trail, all the way down. You just walk along the creek. That's how we found our way, all the way to Bellingham Bay. There's a trail. The village at Lake Whatcom was called Chachu Amish, and the name for a village is Ochwilmuch. Chachu Amish Ochwilmuch is at Lake Whatcom. And what I found crazy was in my studies in another class, I read this book by Susie Sampson, and she talks about Chachu Amish village, the village at Lake Whatcom. Her people went to go visit there during the Great Flood to check on them. And also she said that Lummi people were also there, and during the Great Flood a big wind came and crushed a lot of canoes, including some of the Lummi canoes. But the people all gathered there and they worked together, and they went up to the mountains and took what canoes they could and tied them together and made a raft. And then they took their dried salmon for sustenance, and that's how they survived. I thought it was cool that she mentioned Nooksack in the Great Flood story, and Lummi and Skagit, so they were all working together for the Great Flood. I hope I brought you some good insight on some place names, and that we've been here since time immemorial. Thank you for listening.